Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 100 of the ATL Falcons UK podcast. It has been a long road, but we have made it into triple digits. This week we have a full showing. So to this side of me, always wrong. We've got Liam, we've got Cal, and we've got Mark co-hosting. And hopefully, reasonably shortly, we will be joined by the OG Dirty Bird, Jamal Anderson, so we can run through the season so far. To get us started this week, though, it was, of course, Falcons v Saints yesterday. Not quite a result we were all hoping for, but yeah, we're going to break that down a little bit and then hopefully get Jamal in a little bit later to summarize the season so far. So, boys, let's start with Liam. How are you feeling about yesterday's result?
Yeah, it's a tough one to take, that one, just because, well, losing to the Saints is obviously difficult in general anyway. Losing to a Saints team that we would have expected to be fully stacked this season, as if in the state that they were in with the full roster, would have been difficult to take. Losing to a Saints team that was already deemed to be bad with loads of players missing was somehow the worst thing that could have happened. But at least, we're in a position where I say that division game doesn't matter as much as maybe it could have at this stage of the season. Obviously, we've done well in the division in general so far. The Saints are not really a threat despite that win. Obviously, the Bucks lost, the Panthers won, but again, they're not really a threat either. So it could have been worse in terms of like the overall situation of the season, but it's just a little bit worrying that we just seem to, every now and again, like same with the Seahawks game, we just stutter. Like we just seem to change our whole, like the way we play, and we just seem to like forget all the fundamental things.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. But yeah, obviously, come towards the end of the season and, dare I say the playoffs, you simply cannot afford one of those games. Like in the playoffs, it's, one and gone, isn't it? Like, that's it.
Yeah.
So, we have to, if there's something we can do to work that out, we've got to work it out over the next, 3 or 4 weeks, just to make sure that we do cement that players in the playoffs, and then obviously to be ready for the playoffs where we're actually hitting at full strength every single week, because that we're going to have to, even to make it through one round of the playoffs, we have to be on our game, because no matter who makes the playoffs, they're going to be a half decent team. So disappointing on both sides of the ball. There was some good stuff in there mixed in, but overall, we should have done a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, as Liam said, right, always tough losing against those who must not be named. Always tough. I think one thing that I would say is that across the NFL, bar 2 or 3 teams, don't think you could really pinpoint any team across the NFL that are really and truly firing on all cylinders. It kind of feels like this is a bit of a stuttery season for everybody. And I think one of the main takeaways from me from this, although it's heavily disappointing in the game that we chose to do this in, I think the big thing for me is, look, guys, 3 missed field goals. Even 2 of those go in. One goes in, and we're going to overtime, right? 2 go in, we've won the game. Who has won us more games than he's ever cost us?
Yes, yeah.
And I think when you position it like that, I mean, I did have a feeling that it was going to be a bit of a close game. If you position it like that, well, we're singing a very, very different tune today. If 2 of those field goals are made, you would have probably bet good money that Koo wouldn't have had a problem with 1, never mind 3. And I think the first miss maybe got into his head a little bit, and then it's hard to get them demons out sometimes. One of the first rules of of playing football is you got to be a goldfish. You got it as soon as one play. If you're at fault for it, you've got to forget about it and just move on to the next one. And guys, let's just take a step back here. I've seen comments today said fire Raheem and all this sort of stuff, and this is a
Bonkers.
first year coaching staff, with I would say a relatively inexperienced head coach, right? Like
Yeah.
he's still like Raheem's still learning. First year DC, first year OC, like guys, come on, like it wasn't all going to be plain sailing. I think if this is any other team apart from the Saints, I don't think anyone really bat as much of an eyelid. So, for me, it was a tough one to swallow because I know we're better than that.
Yeah.
But what I take solace from is the whole league stuttering. Everybody, I mean, I don't know if anybody managed to catch Jared Goff's performance. I don't think anybody would have pegged. I think I lost count of the amount of interceptions that happened in like a 5-minute span, right? So
Yeah.
listen, the game plan didn't work last night. You got to accept that. You got to move on. You got to get ready for Denver because Denver gave the Chiefs a game this week. Ironically, so did we earlier in the season. So it's a good opportunity to bounce back. I just think I would call for a slight bit of calm. Because like I say, two field goals with arguably one of the top 3 kickers in the league, and we win that game yesterday, and we're having a very different conversation. So, I'm hurt, but I'm okay.
It's one of those, isn't it? Like you just said, it's a kick in the teeth, but we're fine. We're still top of the NFC South. We're still rolling. Like it's more frustrating that it was the Saints as opposed to losing a game. And of course, the manner just doesn't really help. Carl, have you got anything to add? Even though we've just rinsed it.
Well, a lot of it's the same. I did say before the show, I think they didn't beat us. We beat ourselves. The defense in the second half was a completely different team. Stopped them several times. I think they only put 3 points against us in the second half.
Yeah.
First half, they walked down the field at times. It was a bit like it's like such a bipolar team. Like the first half was like, what are we watching again? Oh, it's the same thing. Second half, the defense was like, it's done its job. 3 points in the second half. The offense had chance after chance, and then after the field goal missed. That's some sort of the game, didn't it? Like, who's just not had one of them games. He just had one of them games, and it sort of is what it is. But if you go to the running game, perfect. I think Bijan hit over 100. Algier hit 50, 60. Mooney received 80 odd yards. I think London was similar. It wasn't like the offense wasn't. It was good getting down the field. It was just the red zone. We're very like this year. We've been very good in the red zone, I think, but this week it was just one of them games, and I think the fan base it surprised me a bit because I think it's not blown up as thought it would have, which is because I feel like we are 6-4. We're still dominating the division at the moment. The Bucks lost. The Saints don't have their playoffs. That was their game of the season. That was it. They wanted to derail that season. But we move on to next week which is a very winnable game. Broncos look good, but we've got to bounce back. Look what we did against the Seahawks. Played awful against them, and then won the next two.
Well, I mean, like you just said, it was their game of the season. Their locker room videos emphasize that it was very much their game of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever you win a game, I wouldn't say not celebrate because I'd never say that about anyone. But God, the over dramatization from a single win that still leaves you third in the division, that was hefty. I understand it's us, so that's where it stems from, of course. But the audacity is crazy. Just going to jump in the car. Oh, go on, Matt.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I think one thing that it kind of shows, which we sort of touched on last week, right, is how much their old head coach had kind of really sort of ruined the locker room, right? And I have to tip the hat to Aaron Freeman on this one because he called it on Locked On Falcons last week, and he said, actually, if you look at our record against teams who have just fired head coaches and have an interim, we actually have a pretty awful record. And I wonder whether that played into it, and that record and that locker room really did rally against um, a bit of adversity, considering what had happened in the past 7 days. So, I think it's. I mean, I can't be complimentary of them. I do agree it was a lot, but at the same time, I think what we have to reflect on in that instance is, well, we weren't ready for that, and my overwhelming concern is, why weren't we ready? Because we should have expected it.
Yeah. We were just off the boil from the very beginning. Nil first drive, big returns from them constantly in terms of the yardage that they were gaining from the beginning. We just didn't look alert for definitely the first quarter, arguably much further into that. It was not all bad. That's the problem. There is still signs of life, and we're at a position now where our off games are bad, but we've seen much worse. We've seen absolutely null and void performances where nobody's interested. And that isn't the case anymore. It's usually individual errors or sluggishness that causes us games, as opposed to just a collateral failure. We're not that team anymore.
Yeah, I'm not going into next week worried now. Like, it was one of them games. We played the Seahawks, and it was similar kind of game where they were better than us, but we didn't do much. But there were signs yesterday, like I said earlier, the defense in the first half was like same again. Second half, they're allowing 3 points. They've done their job in their second half. 20 points at home against the Saints. The offense, like you say, if we could make 7 field goals, we win the game. But even then, we got down the field really well. The run game was probably one of the best I've seen throughout the season, just with a lot of the plays. And it was just the odd plays from the offensive coach or whoever picked at Raheem, and that was like, why have they gone for that? Why have they gone for the pass there and that? But it's learning. But I'm not. If this was last year, I'd be like, God, season's over. This is it. Blah blah blah. We're 6-4. We're top of the division. 5-1 in 4-1 in the division as well. I'm not worried.
No, absolutely, and that's fair enough. Does anyone want to point some shining lights or silver linings at any particular players from yesterday?
Mooney,
there was a couple in there.
Yeah, Mooney. And Bijan, I guess, they'd be the two, wouldn't they?
Yeah. The touchdown from Bijan down the right hand side of the field, where he had a little bit of all of his traits in one. It was a little sidestep, a little skip, a bolt of pace, and then also dragging 2 men with him at the same time. I feel like it's the first time that I've seen a run from him that actually catered to all of his abilities all in one run. It was pretty tasty, to be fair.
Some big runs as well.
Yes.
That was the thing for me. Like, that is where Bijan should be. It's where it's those kind of plays where you break through the 10 yards and you keep going, and that and it's a little bit less risky than throwing when Kirk turns the Kirk chaos meter up to 11. So it's good to see that maybe we're starting to unlock a little bit of that as well. I mean, you can't fault how the guy is progressing, as far as I'm concerned, and he's progressing in the system, and that can only mean good things. And I think one thing that we've seen quite a lot over the past couple of years is young offensive coordinators coming in and doing a good job, and then automatically getting a head coach's job. And there's part of me that goes, I think Zach Robinson has got a real talent for unlocking some of these guys, as he's already done with Mooney and London, and even Pitts to a degree. So if we can keep building on that, and I mean, you're not going to go out and score 30 points a game every game, lads. That's just not going to happen. So we just have to roll with the punches on this one. And we're going up against a good Denver defense as well. We'll have to bear that in mind. So we're going to have to be creative. We've got to dust ourselves off, and I'm confident that we can turn this around sharpish.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we'll use that as a little segue. It is a good Denver defense. They are 5-5. They've had a bit of a up and down all over the show season, but I suppose it was kind of expected for them. We've got a little comment, so we'll move on to tying that in. Will we actually sack Bo Nix?
Yes.
How many times?
Well, we haven't made a huge dent in anyone's offensive line this year.
No.
But
How many
yeah, I think
times
I
have you
think we
been
will.
sacked? Yeah. How many times have you been sacked this year? I'm trying to think like that Patriots yesterday, was it 9 sacks? That was ridiculous. That's what we've had before. They got 9 sacks in one game. We've had 9 all season. But it is like we talk about every week, don't they, with the defense? Is it the scheme? Is it the players? And I think, like with Mark said, it's got to be the scheme. The players look like they're there, and the pressure on the quarterback has not been that bad when you look at the stats. What I think we looked at it the other week. It is just the getting
just to get home.
quarterback
Yeah.
on.
And listen, right? I think currently we're sitting at about, I want to say 14th defense overall, something like that, right? Like this kind of bend but don't break ethos and trying to stop explosive plays. And like, again, I get it. I still think there's more that we can do. And guys, if we think back to a little while ago, and we were talking about the trade deadline, and we're talking about what do we give up to maybe draft a pass rusher. Like, again, what are you going out there to get? Like, what return is it going to get us? Is it? I mean, we traded for Judon. That was a 3rd round pick, right? Are we really picking up that dude's giving that guy a new deal? Like that, because if we aren't, that's a 3rd round pick down to Swanee. I mean, it depends on how much money he wants, first of all. But I think he's certainly lost a little bit of juice after that injury. So I mean, if it's a team friendly deal, then hell, keep him. But I guess when I pondered on that a little bit more, we were talking, oh well, Giants only won a 4th Ojulari and stuff like that, and it's like, well, yeah, but we're going to end up with no draft picks soon. So you're kind of like, what we banking on here? And I think the bigger conversation is, and I do think it is more down to scheme than anything, but you've got to look at this defense and go, look, we've got some real pieces there, but some of them pieces have to mature together, and the scheme has to mature together, and it's really difficult because all strong defensive units are just really not built overnight. And I'm kind of glad in retrospect that we didn't go, well, actually we'll trade for Ojulari, and then rather than go 1 and done in the playoffs, we go 2 and done in the playoffs, right? Because again, what does that really get us in the long run? And I think the longevity of this team and the progression of this team is probably more important, right? I do think we sack Bo Nix. I'll make that prediction now, and I think we sack him at least twice. There you go. There's my bold hot take for this week. Bo Nix is going down.
At least 2 times.
At least 2 times. Yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it this week. Bank on it, Carl. You can stick that bet on. You can have it on me. But it's a good show. It's something, I think we can go around on this every week, can't we? But we just have to accept that maybe that's not who we are right now.
I mean, if anybody was legitimately expecting the finished product this season as well, they probably needed to give their head a little wobble because we've come off 6 straight seasons of 7 wins or 4 wins, like bang in the middle of that. We are not just going to flip that around and suddenly become a 14-win team. That's just not how this sport goes. And we're not really in a position where we were aiming to be that team. Like Terry said, he kind of wanted his cake and he wanted to eat it at the same time. So we're stuck in that like middle ground where he's not absolutely put the house on it, but he's also invested well where we've needed to make us a competitive team, because we've not even been a competitive team for the last 6 years. So getting to that level again, where at least our divisional rivals are bothered about playing us, that's your primary target. If you can't get out the division, the rest is irrelevant. So one step at a time.
I'm going to say this a little bit tongue-in-cheek.
Oh, no.
But I think it needs to be said. Everyone made a little bit too much of a big deal around Ryan Nielsen going to the Jags last year, right? How are they doing?
Not so good. Not so good. So much so that I woke up to a tweet this morning saying, how has the entire Jags coaching staff not been sacked yet? Word for word.
And they've got a number 1 pick at pass rush, if I remember rightly.
Who they got?
Trevor Walker, was it? Was he first? Was he first or second pick?
He was definitely top 3 or 4.
He was up there, yeah. Although, it was more for his run stopping and stuff, isn't it? But he's not really.
You don't take someone, Liam. You don't take someone in the top 3 of the draft because he's a good run stopper.
Well, no, but he wasn't a stat guy in college, so like they can't have expected a massive thing from him in NFL. But I imagine they're expecting more than they've got. But it happens, doesn't it? No.
So all I'm saying is, we're obviously working on this scheme. It's not great, but even last year when we had a defense that we thought was actually really watchable, it just goes to show that you change that coaching structure and you change the scheme, and actually it doesn't necessarily mean that you get a whole heap of production out of it.
Absolutely. Sorry, boys. I was doing the social bits.
That's okay.
They suck, don't they? In general, it's a tough one. But there's a lot of teams that are in similar positions where their rosters are just in a weird spot.
Yeah,
a lot of teams are in that way, like where they've got some talent and loads of holes, which is why I thought that we were a little bit ahead of that. But we're not.
It's been difficult to watch, but I do hold some hope that I think we've got the main pieces of that defense actually cemented. Some on longer term deals. I think they took the gamble on having that sort of safety duo of Simmons and Jesse Bates, and I think that teams are kind of wise to it. I'm not seeing a lot of down the middle of the field big passes. So then you kind of go, well, we only got Simmons on a 1-year deal, so that was an experiment that maybe didn't necessarily. I'm not saying it didn't work, but I'm just saying maybe it was a luxury that we could have afforded somewhere else, maybe. But an opportunity like that, opportunity like that presents itself. Fair play to them for having to go to it.
Also, sorry, go on, Cal.
No, I think you mentioned it last week. Obviously, I didn't do the show, but I watched some of it about would we have signed Simmons if what's his name didn't get injured in pre-season.
Would we have signed Judon if Trice hadn't got injured?
Yeah, that's one of them. It's like, but at least that's been like we know he's injured for the rest of the season, but we know we've got him next year.
Yeah,
he's gonna basically. He's still a rookie, but he's gonna be. He's probably still learned a lot this year, but obviously just watching wise. But that's another signing next year where if he stays fit,
also if he's watching, he has been invited on the show, and he did message me back and said, I mean, he's probably blocked me by now, but if on the
I
off
would
chance
as
you
well,
are
to be
watching.
fair. My point was just going to be, it's a little bit of a catch-22 or a little bit of a paradox, because if you don't have both of those safeties and you only have one of them, teams then do go down the middle and go over the top. And then you say, why haven't we got two people of super high quality? But then you have them both, and teams obviously don't want to play to your strengths and therefore don't do it. But you don't win either way, because we've gone from having, I don't want to say none, because that's a little bit disrespectful, but we've gone from having not the greatest standard to like two top players, and therefore teams have to adjust accordingly. So if we only had one and then one half decent.
But then I guess so it begs the question, right? They've seen an opportunity, right? And I think Simmons was like 9 million hit, I think, 1 year deal, something like that. Again, we have a small bit of cash space left. Do you put that together and go and get another pass rusher or another corner, for example, whatever? I'm just waxing lyrical that I think what they've done is they've made that defense out to do a certain job. Teams are slightly wise to it, I think.
Yeah.
And maybe we could have, and probably will do next year, look to maybe push some of that money into other areas to keep that defense in growing as a unit, right? So all I'm saying is, and Carl said it in the beginning, right? Like that second half, they played fantastically well.
Yeah.
Good. We're good at making halftime adjustments. Stop being so awful in the first half, please. That's all I'm asking for you.
Exactly.
I think that's happened the few times where we've won 6 games, but in the last quarter they've properly turned up and they stopped it and we've won by 3 points or touchdown and that. And you're thinking, what happened in the first 3 quarters? Like, not much has changed, but obviously something must change, and they obviously get. It's like they need that little positive thing to happen, and then they sort of
spring into life.
Wake up a bit.
Yeah.
It is frustrating, and this is why we obviously talk about it every week. And it is all we want is obviously the best for the team, and we want the best, a better defense. But
for sure.
Hopefully, it will happen. It'll definitely happen. You got to trust the team. Like, there's a lot of people out there that they trust no one, do they?
Yeah, just nobody at all.
I mean, boys, we're weathered into this franchise. 6 to 10 years, I guess, is probably the longest tenure. Liam, is that right? Is it about 10 years?
No, Liam's
2008.
Woof.
2008. Right. Okay. So you've waited a little bit longer than I have. Hang on. How old was that?
It still hurts.
Probably 8 or 9 years in. But yeah, I mean, it hurts us after that, right? And, I mean, you can imagine how it must feel being in Atlanta and having to suffer this your whole life.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
I imagine it's a little bit like supporting Newcastle.
You beat me to it.
I'd have moved.
You got other sports in Atlanta, and then if you're probably going to be a basketball fan, and the Hawks ain't great, and you're like,
they're not fun. Yeah.
No, they're also not fun. Can confirm it. And the only Atlanta team that, or the only sort of Atlanta team that are consistently good, I chose not to support. So
it's a hard life, and again, whoever you picked wouldn't have been good, so it doesn't matter. It is a direct correlation.
That is absolutely correct. Yes, the Gators are awful. It's amazing.
This is why you need the Georgia Tech boys that we've been dragged into supporting now, doing madness.
Oh yeah, not beat Miami. Can go out on that for years. They can.
I said
That's a good result.
There's rumours of an ice hockey team coming to Atlanta, and because obviously I'll watch it. I think it's quite a good sport if you get into it, and obviously I'm like, well, I don't support anyone else, so now I've got to pick that team if they do come.
You have
I'm
no
like,
choice.
do I need to do that to myself?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Yeah, you do.
We need to spread a little bit more misery around. That's just 100% what has to happen. So I'm guessing our guest is being held up, Danny. So I think have we had any word?
Our guest has replied, and he's trying to get himself sorted and online now. So he's here.
Awesome.
He's coming at some point. I
He's
still
in the
don't have an
building.
ETA, but he's giving it his best shot.
It's like it reminds me of, like, you know, when you used to watch the WWF when you were young, and like somebody would be mouthing off in the ring, and then you'd see the clip backstage, and like The Rock would be walking in with
He's
his
literally
bag,
there, waiting
just a
now
waistcoat on, and he's like, he's in the building, he's in the building.
He's here. But
So
yeah, go on.
just before we get him on, I do think it is worth using the time to touch on the Broncos game while we've still got Liam on, because I know, Liam, you said that you might have to drop.
Yeah, I'll drop
What's your I'm just interested to hear what your main thoughts are around what you've seen from the Broncos this season.
Oh my God, they're another team that I don't. It's hard to even describe what I've seen because they're just so up and down in terms of the way that they have been playing. Like, obviously they were expected to be pretty bad. I'd say they've been better than people thought they were going to be sort of pre-season, which I think you could say the same of a few different teams.
Yeah.
I can't. Are they 6-4 or 5-5? I can't. I don't know.
5-5.
5-5. Obviously, you know, Bo Nix has struggled at times. He's had flashes of some good stuff.
He has,
you know, especially with his legs, and you know, made the odd sort of like good throw, but also, you know,
surprised me at times. Surprised me at times.
He's yeah, there's been games where he's in moments where he's certainly struggled, but you know, he's done. He's a fighter, which I think, you know, was pretty clear when he was coming out. He clearly matters to him a lot. He puts everything into every single game. So, but I think the defense is obviously the strength of that team, isn't it? Yeah. You know, I think they've been in mostly in fairly close games. Yeah, they could get blown out a couple of times, but you know, overall they're pretty strong. They've got a strong secondary that's going to be, you know, hard for us to make decent yards against. But hopefully we can run the ball with some sort of efficiency like we have been for the last 4 weeks. You know, we need to sort of force the hand a little bit, get ahead in the game, and it's like we've said a couple of other teams that we've played against. We need to make them chase us with a rookie quarterback who's still finding his feet in the league. That's a very tough thing to do, is when you know, you have to throw and the game's on the line and stuff like that. That's what we forced him into. If we let him sort of like manage the game, I think he's got like the, you know, enough speed and stuff to just, you know, make these short runs when he's a little bit panicked to essentially be a game manager. We can't allow him to do that. We need to make him go deep to, you know, a receiving core that isn't really that strong, with some decent players on it.
Sutton's balling out.
He's a good player, but I mean, I wouldn't put him in that sort of top 10, 15 receiver category. I don't think. He may be pushing on the top 15, but I wouldn't even. For me, that, you know, the rest of his surrounding cast.
Really all he's got to go to, though, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got to consider that if we can shut them down a little bit on that offense, that we should have enough. But I imagine a lot of teams have fought the same against them this season and probably come up short. So it's going to be a battle. I'm not as confident against them now as I was at the start of the season.
Yes, agree. Yeah.
But yeah,
I think at the beginning of the season we probably thought, because I know you and I didn't share a lot of love for Bo Nix coming out of college, and not because he's an awful player. I just, you know, I didn't really see him excelling into a high level NFL quarterback. And I would say that I don't think we've really seen that from him. I think from this draft class, you could argue that there's probably only been one that we have seen it from. So thus far, obviously. But I think, yeah, as you said, the key to this game is how we deal with that defense. And they've got a lot of decent pieces over there.
Yeah, they have indeed. And we don't want to let those Bucks be catching up on us too much, so we can't really afford two losses on the bounce. I know we've technically got a three game cushion at the moment in time, haven't we, with the two, and then of course the head-to-head. But still, you don't want to be drawing in with 6 more games left in the season, and them only 2 games behind you, and then, like I said, we've got teams like Washington coming up and stuff like that are going to be challenges in different ways. So
this is
but I think,
the first quarter.
Sorry, go on, Carl.
So, no, I was just going to mention that it's the first rookie quarterback we've actually played this year. And I think in the last few years we played quite a few quite early on. And pretty sure he's only the first one this year. And we've got obviously Jaden Daniels later on. But it looks like it's going to be sort of sounds a bit odd, but like our offense against their defense, that's sort of going to win it. I think.
Yeah. I think
that's
our defense will put up against their offense pretty well, but I think it will be. Let's be honest, every game's been close for us, and this year it's probably going to come down to another field goal, and hopefully Q's back to his normal best. It's going to be competitive, and like what Liam said, it'll be a good game, and just hopefully we can go into it confident, which I still am, even though we've just lost against them lot. I'm still confident going into this game, which I think in the last few years I wouldn't have been, but we're 6-4 on the top of the division, so.
The deafening silence then. The deafening silence. Yeah.
Just the one note that I wanted to make on the end of it, and this, and I was quite vocal at the beginning of the show around talking about, look, who's won us way more games than he's ever lost us. But I think it is inherently important that they get their arms around him this week and get him back to where he needs to be, because I fear with just the business of kickers in the NFL.
Yeah.
If you go 2 or 3 games with some poor performances, that can really start the funeral music. So, and I don't want that to happen. I'd love Ku to stay with us and continue in great form for many, many years, because he's been a fantastic servant thus far to our franchise. But I just really hope that they take some time out to focus on that this week, because it's not like him. It's very, very uncharacteristic, where he's been so consistent over the years. But I just wanted to add that, because if it is a close game and it is our offense against our defense, then we could well need him this week.
Definitely. I was looking at his stats for us, and I think obviously he's missed 7 this year, but he's been over around 90% every year, which is top class, to be fair.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best in the league. He's only missing 3 or 4. Not had the best season so far, but he has won us games, and he's won us many games in the past. We've been fans for 6 years. Me and Danny, he's probably given us the best moments so far. Last second field goals, so I'm not going to be too harsh on it.
Yeah,
he'll bounce back. He's done it before. He got released from the Chargers, didn't he? Quite a few years ago.
Yeah, and it was, and that's,
we signed him up, and look what he's done for us.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons I want to mention it, because I think he had like a really sort of poor 2 or 3 game streak for the Chargers, and they just cut him. And I'd hate to see us make them same mistakes, because kickers, they have longevity, right? So we've just got to help him and support him get through whatever's caused that. Hopefully, it's just a total blip. And we can see the old coup next week.
Absolutely. Just a little pop-up. We've got a message from the enemy in the chat. Books UK boys congratulating us on 100 episodes. Thank you, boys. It has
Appreciate it,
been
boys. Thank you.
a pleasure. I'd say competing with you, but actually this is about the first season I've seen where we're actually competing with you. So probably overstating us a little bit there.
Oh no,
whilst-
the Jameis Winston years were beautiful.
I wonder if the boys are still in, or if they dropped the message and did a runner, so we'd have to call. We'll see. A few bits coming in from press conferences. Literally
2 seconds, Daddy. I think Liam's got to go.
I'll have to drop off now. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Absolutely, mate.
Thanks,
Thank you
Liam.
for coming, and thank you for repping that stunning merchandise that you're wearing.
Imagine that.
Top man, mate. Thank you as always. Have a good night.
See you later.
Thanks, Liam.
I have no idea what's going to happen to the format now. Oh, that's fine. We can deal with that.
There you go.
So just a little bit coming out now. Troy Anderson has re-aggravated his knee injury, according to Raheem Morris. Taquan Graham and James Smith-Williams' injuries are not great, and I quote from Morris as well. So that's a little bit of a tough one, getting a couple of injuries back on there. Anderson would be a frustrating one if he basically come in, played a bit, and then off he goes again.
Well, I mean that's a tough one to take. I think it's even tougher because since he's been drafted, he has had numerous problems, and I obviously hope that it's not too heavy of a re-aggravation. But you at this point you really start to worry whether our linebacker room is completely cursed. Because in terms of even thinking so far ahead as draft needs, that linebacker room is definitely an area that we need to strengthen. Caden Ellis cannot carry everything on his back. I've seen a little bit of a drop off from Lambin compared to what we've seen last season as well. So that's a real concern. I hope it's a speedy recovery.
Yeah, it would be a tough one to take, especially at this point in the season, because we've just been gagging to get those kinds of players back in and fit properly.
Yeah,
they come in, do a bit of a job, and then before you know it, it really is a vicious sport for injuries, isn't it? You literally have no time to recover, nor do you have the facilities to. When it's that physical, a full recovery is a season, and you just don't have the luxury of missing a season.
And what people don't realize is it's such an explosive sport. So, when for the UK audience who've grown up watching our football or soccer to any of the audience who might be from the other side of the pond, it is a completely different kind of physicality, and it is a different, it is and I'm speaking as somebody who's played it at a very, very, very amateur level. And I unfortunately found the sport very, very late in life when my body's not probably as invincible as it used to be, and my wife will contest to the fact that I used to come in walking like Hulk Hogan pretty much every week. And I have a bag over there, as you seen when I this is going to sound awful, but when I showed you my helmet before we came on, I've got everything else in that bag is essentially just braces and armored underpants and shirts and everything just to try.
Have you lost him as well, Cal?
Yeah.
Well, whilst he's not there, I'll just put my helmet on and I'll do like 5 minutes of the show with my fake fit on. So these are the cupcakes from my missus for the 100th episode. I've got a ton of them, and I don't know how I'm going to eat them all on my own, so I'm going to have to drop some off at Cal's. But yeah,
I think going back to one sec, going back to the injuries wise, I think it's so we get someone back and then someone else sort of goes off. And I feel like this year there's been a lot more injuries throughout the season compared to other years. I don't know if that's just because we've had a few more, but there's been quite a lot of big injuries. We've got big players out this year, which is it's bad to see. It's not good to see, obviously, but like you say, it's a brutal sport. We see it from the TV or the stands or whatever, and it doesn't look as bad on TV even when you're in the stands. But you can tell when it zooms in, you're like, that's like career. Something like that's what you mean. It's the 17 games in a season.
Well,
you have an injury, that can be it.
Exactly, and I think people overlook the fact that these aren't like your average Joes running into each other, and these aren't like none of these players weigh 10 stone and 9 stone and 11 stone and stuff like that. They're all 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, like the 20 plus stone. There's big boys. They're big boys.
When we was on the sideline, we were next to the Seahawks players, and even the ones that were like, I'm only 5'9", and there was a guy like my height, but he was like you've got no chance. It's like running into a wall if he's coming at you. You got literally no chance. Like these guys are, they look so. When you're up close to them, anyone who gets up close to them, they look scary. They look scary.
Yeah, very much so.
That's probably why they have a pad on every week compared to obviously our sport in rugby or whatever, which don't.
Yeah. Let's jump into the comments a little minute. There has been a issue with Facebook, so if you're on Facebook and watching, I can see your comments, but we can't see who you are, which is really unfortunate. But yes, you can hear the hits. They are rough, especially now we've been to the London games before, but that's a different vibe. But when we went to Georgia Tech v Notre Dame, when we went over to Atlanta, we got down into the first tier, and that was juicy. You could hear everything, pad on pad. We've got I'm Vaughn watching over on YouTube, going back to the Saints game. As unfortunate as it was, I wasn't upset about the Saints loss, but we did look flat. As we've said earlier in the show, it's one of those, like, it's a tough one to take, but at the same time, you just get used to it. I think we have Mark back. Still no Jamal. He is trying to get on. We have had messages saying he's trying to use the links and stuff like that. It's a technology issue and there's nothing I can do about it. It's devastating for the 100th episode, but we're struggling now. We're struggling. Short of Jamal giving me his phone number and me putting him on the phone like this for the full episode, we might be struggling a little bit, but I'll give it a go. We just stayed on the topic of hits, Mark, we had a few saying you can hear the hits, and we were like, damn right you can. Damn right you can. We said when we went to the Georgia Tech v Notre Dame game, we went down into the first tier, and even from there, like, you could hear it when it's big boys. I'm like, they're not 11 stone and 12 stone people. They're 15, 16, 20 stone plus people. It's a big impact.
and you can't get away from the fact that this year we've already seen some mad injuries, and to big players, and a lot of the times, if it might not just be because of a tackle. It may, some of this turf, really takes its toll on the joints and ligaments and all that sort of stuff. So I can I fully understand it. I've seen some horrible injuries playing Britball. So and I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like playing at a professional level.
No.
So it's a really tough one. I think losing to Quan Graham is also a tough one because that's another little depth piece on that defensive line. So I think it's probably a good job that we kept a hold of Kentavious Street, because I would imagine we will probably start to see him in that rotation nose tackle position a little bit more now. So he's going to have to pull his socks up and get in the rotation and be that next man up, because it's really important that we don't lose that momentum.
Yeah, 100%. Another little comment. Congratulations, fellas, on the 100th episode. I appreciate you guys' work. Well, we appreciate you watching. Thank you very much for joining us. just a little side note, random one, again, live
Okay,
whilst
we
we're
love a side
ongoing.
note right now, yeah.
The Falcons have signed Lamar Jackson to the practice squad, but he's a cornerback. So I know nothing about that, but obviously people are tweeting that without any context whatsoever and losing their minds for no reason whatsoever. So,
where have we signed him from? The name, like I was going to say, the name rings a bell. I didn't mean that to sound ironic.
Yeah, honest, I can't even find that. Everybody's just laughing too much at the fact that he's called Lamar Jackson. So any useful information probably won't come out for a good hour and a half. There's just no way.
I've definitely heard of him before, so he's got to be. He must have been on another practice squad.
I knew there was another player called Lamar Jackson, but I had no idea that he was a cornerback, and I have no idea who he plays for. So
no, I've got absolutely nothing on that one.
But that's interesting, Again, like I don't obviously, sometimes with these practice squad moves and stuff, you can take players from other teams and kind of just have them in that reserve, I suppose. Given that we've just had quite a significant linebacker injury, I'm quite surprised that we've made a move for a corner. So I hope that doesn't mean that there's anything else lingering in the injury room. Of any of the more prominent corners on the squad. So let's just hope that's an opportunity that they couldn't refuse, chaps.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're getting to a little bit of an awkward time in the show, really, because we're meant to be joined by a special guest now. Seems like he's having technical issues. It's a terrible night for us to have it on the 100th episode. I am just wondering, how long do we give it before we have to call it quits? Because we are getting to normal showtime length here, and I don't want you guys just to be looking at our faces and listening to us for the sake of it. So I'm weighing up live on the spot whether a reschedule is more effective than trying to force out more content. Boys, this is a weird one to be discussing live, but
it is a weird one. It's always listen, guys. It's always the risk with doing a live show, right?
Yeah.
So, and obviously, it would have been amazing to have had Jamal on for our 100th show. I mean, I think it was almost borderline written in the stars after we managed to lose to the Saints before our 100th show. So a little bit of a comedy of errors, but listen, I think anybody who watches the show regularly will understand that obviously we talk to a lot of people over in the States. We've got obviously a big time zone change. There's always the risk of technical difficulties. I mean, Christ, lads, we have them ourselves. I mean, my phone just powered off, and I only joined on my phone tonight because my laptop wasn't working. So I guess it might be more pertinent to reschedule with Jamal. 101 has a nice ring to it.
101's just as good as 100.
Absolutely. And I think it would be really, really good for us to reconvene, hopefully on a victory Monday rather than on a hate week loss Monday. We've taken the slings and arrows from many of the Saints fans and Saints groups across the UK this week, and you've got to roll with the punches and take that. So I think we just probably have to take a knee right now, boys, and just go. We'll call it there for this week. We'll regroup next week, hopefully with some happier circumstances.
Absolutely. But ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure nonetheless. 100 episodes has not come easily, but it has been fun every step of the way. If anybody has been here since day one, our OG shows were me and Cal sat in one room in front of one laptop, not really knowing what to say because we were new to the sport, but people asked us whether we'd start a podcast because there was none going over in the UK. And we thought, okay, We had scripts and everything because we were just not confident.
It was bad, but we had to start somewhere, didn't we? And
Exactly.
look where
And
we are
then
now,
we
good shows later. So.
progressed slowly to adding more people until such a point where I can only describe it as utter chaos. And we'd have like 10 people on a show at a time. Everyone's just talking over each other, and it was like we're at a bar or a pub just talking about sports, which was probably entertaining for everyone featuring, but it was not a good watch. And then, of course, we've had the luxury for the last 2 full seasons of adding Mark and Liam to the show, which has clearly just taken us to another tier entirely.
Well, what can I say? What can I say, guys? Do you know what I mean? It's been listen, I think, you know, one thing that we have to kind of almost kind of give a little bit of thanks for, we've worked at this to be a little bit more present in the Atlanta Falcons community. You know, we've interacted with you know, the main Falcons account. We've interacted with players, we've interacted with ex-players, you know, sports journalists in the US. And it's been, and we've been lucky enough to see them in the flesh. Obviously, you guys have obviously had the pleasure of seeing them on Atlanta soil, and you know, when you choose this football team, unfortunately, it's a little bit of a life sentence, right? But you know, I look at other teams and go, it must be so boring to support them.
Exactly. It keeps us alive. It keeps the heart going.
And I think I mean, I've spent a bit of time in Atlanta in my younger years, and I know you guys have had the pleasure of doing so now. And you know, to be able to talk about the football team of such a fantastic city full of fantastic people it's a pleasure, right? I mean, dealing with some of the fan base isn't a pleasure sometimes, but you know, we can't thank you all enough for the support that you've given us to grow this podcast, to continue talking about football. You know, Danny's sitting in his living room with balloons. You know, this is a
crazy
hell of a
Mark. Not only balloons, but my missus Brittany has made us cupcakes, and they've got my face on them in a little helmet.
That is pretty special.
It's unbelievable stuff. The issue is I've got 8 of them and a full-size cake and 3 big helium balloons, and I feel like a 12-year-old that's just going to go and squeaky voice all night now.
And only 2 out of the 4 of us are in the vicinity to come and eat those with you. So you know,
we're struggling here. We're struggling, but no, it really has been a pleasure. We really do just do this for the pure joy of talking ball, and you lot obviously just make it 1,000 times better and give us the platform to be able to do this. Things like this don't happen without your guys' support, so we really appreciate it. It's crazy stuff. Here's to 100 more. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll re-up our backgrounds a little bit. Maybe we'll have a studio. Who knows? Who knows what is to come? But yeah, we're gonna keep it bigger and better. Get more guests on. We'll try and get Jamal back on for 101 or another episode coming up soon to make up for the
100%
technical issues for tonight. And failing that, we'll just keep them coming. We'll keep doing what we're doing, and the opportunities will come back around. So thank you, everyone. It's been a bit of a bonkers show, but we still covered everything that we wanted to cover. So, Mark, just to finish it off, I know you probably hate doing this sometimes now, but where do they watch it or listen to it?
Well, Danny, it's funny you should mention. You can find this on all social platforms at ATL Falcons UK, Instagram, Twitter. I've never called it X, Elon. Facebook, YouTube, if you like looking at our ugly mugs. And if you don't, or you're like me and you much prefer listening to podcasts when you're driving or you're on the move, then you can find us on all popular podcast platforms, Apple Music, or Apple Podcast, should I say, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I was not ready for the length of your then. I was not prepared for that.
I couldn't decide how long I wanted to go on for, because I definitely could have gone on longer. I might save that for 200.
Tell me
Yeah.
you're in a band without telling me you're in a band. Unbelievable stuff. The lungs on that.
Yes, I often get complimented about my lungs.
I bet. I bet. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, it has been a pleasure as always. Episode 100. We could not have done it without you. We will be back next week. Hopefully, we'll be the 7-4 Falcons by then. But even if not, group therapy is available and it's free on YouTube and all of the other platforms that Mark's just said. So thank you again, and we will catch you next week.